One more game of the NFL season, and then we are fully into the offseason. And something that's going to be playing out through the entire offseason, whether it gets resolved or whether it doesn't, is going to be what the Miami Dolphins do with Tyreek Hill. Last game of the season, Tyreek Hill requests a trade. Front office has then since said that he has not formally requested a trade to them. So whether he wants to move, whether he was just being emotional in the moment, we're not entirely sure, but with his reaction, it is going to have to spark a decision by this Dolphins team. Do you keep him or do you look to move him on to another team? A lot went wrong for this Dolphins team this year, and a lot went wrong for Tyreek Hill. It started back in preseason before we even really knew there was an issue. He sustains a wrist injury that at the time was bad, but he made the decision to play through it. And then obviously week one, what went on with a cop just further complicated the wrist injury. He ends up having torn ligaments in his wrist that affect him all season long, playing through injury. And a lot of fans were giving him grief for a lot of the drops that he had, for a lot of the poor play that he had. However, it was clear to me that the wrist injury, whether it be catching the ball, whether it be getting space at the line of scrimmage, was affecting him, as well as just mentally he wasn't there with how the team was playing. He then voices that frustration at the end of the season, demanding a trade, not formally demanding a trade, however, going to the public, going to the press and saying, I got to get out of here, is not a good look for this team, is not a good look for a captain, and now Tyreek Hill and Miami Dolphins are at a bit of a crossroads. This season, numbers-wise, was a significant step down from Tyreek Hill. You're looking at back-to-back 1,700-yard seasons, 2 seasons with a combined 20 touchdowns from Tyreek Hill his first 2 years with the Dolphins, to this year, just a measly 960 yards to his standards. That's measly with 6 touchdowns, 81 receptions. A significant step down for Tyreek Hill in production as he gets older, and his contract is still really expensive for this Dolphins team. So it makes sense why a lot of fans are looking at Tyreek Hill even before the comments that he made that maybe the Miami Dolphins should be looking to move on from him. Really expensive, not getting the production that we saw from his first 2 years. And then with the comments he made, it just might be a case that the juice isn't quite worth the squeeze. Maybe he's not quite worth this headache based off his performances on the field. So if the Miami Dolphins were to move off of him, what would that entail? Tyreek Hill currently has a lot of money still left on the table with his current deal. He's going to be a $29 million cap hit this season, and then next year a $52 million cap hit. It will be easier to move on from him next year. There is an out for Tyreek Hill where the Miami Dolphins only have $15 million in dead cap from letting him walk, whereas this season, $57 million dead cap hit if the Miami Dolphins choose to go into next season without Tyreek Hill. Now, if it's a trade situation, there'll be some going back and forth with whether the Miami Dolphins will eat any of the money that move on to the next team, or whether the next team will be able to eat all the money. That is going to be conversations between the Miami Dolphins and whatever that future team could be. A team that I think makes a lot of sense if he does get moved on will be the Washington Commanders, with the amount of cap space that they have, and Jaden Daniels, such an accurate throw of the ball, as well as the arm power and the playmaking ability. So if he were to move on, I think there are teams that would suit him. However, just looking at the money, whether the team has to take the brunt of the money on the other side, that would likely mean the Miami Dolphins don't get as good of compensation in return for Tyreek Hill. Just looking at recent trades that have happened at the wide receiver position, we look last offseason to Stephon Diggs moving from the Buffalo Bills to the Houston Texans. That was a 2025 second-round pick that the Texans gave up to the Bills in return for Stephon Diggs. And then the Buffalo Bills, on the other end, picking up Amari Cooper from the Cleveland Browns, a 3rd and a 7th-round pick. Not great, but not terrible compensation. Certainly far off what the Miami Dolphins originally gave up, with multiple first-round picks and second-round picks going and getting, at the time, arguably the best wide receiver in football. Now, after this last season, that's probably not something you would say about Tyreek Hill. He's probably going to get the surgery, and he's probably going to come back better next year than he was this last season, certainly. However, at 30 years old, it's not getting any easier for Tyreek Hill to be a top wide receiver in the NFL. Something of note to point out about the trades with Stephon Diggs and Amari Cooper is that both of them are now free agents. So while the team was trading for them, they were trading for them to win right now, and they were going to be able to let them walk. They were not going to have to deal with them on their books beyond this season. So that was part of the luxury of trading for those two guys. You get them, you don't get them at a high cost on the books. You maybe give up a pretty premier draft pick, a day 1 pick, or actually rather 2 day 2 picks for those 2 wide receivers. However, you get to let them walk, and you don't have to worry about cap space going into next year. With Tyreek Hill, he's still owed over $70 million, so that would be a pretty big burden for whatever team he goes to. You'll probably get a 2nd-round pick. I can realistically see like a 2nd and a 6th round pick coming back for Tyreek Hill. These trade negotiations are so complicated. and you see guys go for picks and you wonder how he managed to go for so little or how he managed to go for so much. And oftentimes the details are beyond what we know just as a fan at a fan level. So you're probably not getting a day one pick back for Tyreek Hill, but a second round pick and a later round pick is realistic for Tyreek Hill. And then the negotiations go on from there as to what will happen for the money for the team taking him on. A lot of Dolphins fans probably don't want to hear this, but it's probably going to be easier for the Miami Dolphins to just keep a hold of Tyreek Hill than to move him on. Obviously, you're missing one of the biggest pieces of your offense, if not the biggest piece probably of your offense in Tyreek Hill. Somebody that he already has a really good connection with Tua, and somebody that with his speed can deliver what the offense needs him to do. What this offense needs is guys that can get the ball, that are really quick. We're not a punch you in the face offense, even though I would love to see us transition more into that. We're a team that relies on speed, and there is nobody that exemplifies speed in this NFL like Tyreek Hill does. And then you look at the money. You look at what you probably won't get back for Tyreek Hill. You're not getting anywhere near what we saw giving up to the Kansas City Chiefs in return for him. So you're not getting good compensation. So within that compensation, you're not guaranteed to replace him with good, talented players. And we already don't trust Chris Greer as Miami Dolphins fans. So who's to say that he's going to use those picks wisely? Who's to say that he's going to use the cap space wisely that Tyreek Hill would leave by leaving the team, the other team picking up the money that he is owed? So I don't necessarily think that just on the field we will get better. I don't know necessarily if in the cap space it will really make that much of a dent if he is to walk, assuming the Miami Dolphins are going to have to eat some of that money. So what is the real advantage of Tyreek Hill leaving? Let's say Tyreek Hill goes out and gets offseason wrist surgery. Let's say the Dolphins have a decent draft and find a way to retool the defense with not a lot of money left to spend. You let cooler heads prevail. You let him get that surgery, and you let him get back more integrated into the team. I think he can very easily come back next year and have just about as good of a season that he had 2 years ago, 3 years ago, where you're looking at 1,800 yards, looking at 1,700 yards, you're looking at 20 total touchdowns in 2 seasons from Tyreek Hill. He did that not too long ago, and then this year was plagued by a bad Miami Dolphins team when Tua was not in the lineup. He was plagued by his wrist injury, and he was plagued by something that is his own fault. His mentality dropped over the season. If you get him back to the 2022 form, if you get him back to the 2023 form, he's worth every penny, and he is worth the headache that he could potentially cause to this team. I talked about it in the video last week. One thing that I would absolutely not do is have him back as a captain, somebody who is going to do such a selfish thing to say that I need to get out of here. This isn't for me. What's going on? I'm better than this is an incredibly selfish thing to do. So I would not have him back as a captain. But the talent that he provides, the fit with the scheme, the camaraderie that he already has with Tua, the understanding that they have together, I would keep him on the team. I would try to find a way to make it work out behind closed doors, and maybe that's something that they already did. Like I said, the Miami Dolphins have not received a trade request formally from Tyreek Hill. Maybe when they sat down, they patched things out. Maybe when they sat down, they said, look, just shut up and we'll trade you. That's something we're going to have to find out over the offseason. And if it does, it's going to be the biggest breaking news that the Dolphins will have probably all offseason. I don't see any flashy signings. We have a decent first-round pick, but it's probably going to be on an offensive lineman or a secondary piece. It's probably not going to be going as a wide receiver or a quarterback or the more flashy and sexy positions. We're probably not taking Ashton Jeanty with our first-round pick. It's not going to be a really fun offseason probably for the Dolphins. We're going to speculate like it is because that is our job. Hopefully some fun things happen, right? But likelihood is probably that it won't happen unless Tyreek Hill gets moved. I think it would save everybody, including Tyreek himself, a whole lot of headache if he just goes out and gets the surgery. He comes back to the team, and you very well could be looking at another 1,700-yard season. You very likely could be looking at another 10-touchdown season. You're looking like the Miami Dolphins could be right back into the playoff hunt. They were, even with him, not anywhere near full strength. Let him get the surgery. Hopefully he cools off. Tyreek's always going to be a little bit of a head case. Let him figure out his own life, figure out what he's got going on behind closed doors, and hopefully come back to this team and have a pretty big impact. But I know there's a lot of you that are going to be wanting to see him moved on, so let me know your thoughts on this down below in the comments. Should the Miami Dolphins be trading Tyreek Hill? Should they try to bring him back into the fold and see what they can make out of the situation? Let me know. But keep in mind, they do have an out next offseason that'd be a lot more beneficial to the Miami Dolphins. So let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. We'll see y'all next time. Just tried out a new camera today. I hope y'all like it. Let me know if the quality's any better. I'm trying to mess around with the settings a little bit, so this was just kind of a test run. So hopefully this is better.